Hi. So, I am going to explain September 4th shift 1 paper. So, physics questions I am going to explain. So, see the first question. The first question is from the dimensional analysis. Now, the dimensional formula of thermal conductivity will be. So, see. Okay. So, the heat energy flowing through a thermal conductor is given by Q equal to Ka times T1 minus T2 times time interval over L we have. So, our requirement is given by the dimensional formula of this thermal conductivity. So, that is given by the K. So, now the K is given by So, the dimensional formula of the thermal conductivity is given by Q is given by the energy, the dimensional formula of energy is given by mL to T minus 2, dimensional formula of L is L itself, area L square, T1 minus T2, it is given by the difference in the temperature, and this is the time. Okay. Now, simplify this one. So, the dimensional formula of the K is given by M. So, L square get be cancelled. So, it is given by M1 L1 T minus 3 theta minus 1. So, this is given by the dimensional formula. So, option 1 correct. So, let us move to the next question. So, it is a question from the rotational mechanics. Two discs of radii r and r by 2 are made with the same material with the same thickness. Disc of radius r rotates with an angular velocity omega, and the disc of radius r by 2 is at rest. Now, both the discs are placed coaxially. Find a percentage loss of kinetic energy when they rotate with the same angular velocity. So, we have to use the conservation of angular momentum. Now, let us see. This is the first disc of radius r, and it is rotating with an angular velocity omega, let us say, and then the disc of radius r by 2 is kept coaxially with it. So, it will be like this. Let us say this system is rotating with an angular velocity omega dash. So, according to the conservation of angular momentum will give us initial angular momentum equal to final angular momentum. So, initial angular momentum is given by I omega, and final is given by if omega f. So, now initial moment of inertia is given by mr square by 2 times omega, and final moment of inertia is given by mr square by 2 plus the moment of inertia of the second disc, that is mr square by 8. Let us say final angular velocity is given by omega dash. Okay. Now, we will find out the omega dash. After simplifying it, we will get omega dash as 4 omega by 5, and they are asking us the percentage loss of kinetic energy when they rotate with the same angular velocity. So, percentage loss. So, loss is given by, so initial energy minus final energy over initial energy into 100. So, now it is given by the percentage loss is given by of I omega I square minus IF omega F square by initial energy times 100. Okay. Substitute the initial moment of inertia and initial angular velocity, and similarly final moment of inertia and final angular velocity, and simplify it to get 20%. The answer is 20%. So, option 2 correct. Okay. Let us move to the third question. So, for Lyman series, lambda maximum minus lambda minima equal to 340 angstrom units, find the same for the Paschen series. Now, for the Lyman series, lambda maximum minus lambda minimum they give, that is given by 340. So, for same we have to find out for the Paschen series. Now, see, these are the energy levels. So, let us say n equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Lyman series is the first series. So, this is the Lyman series like this, and Paschen series is this one. For the Lyman series, the final state is given by n equal to 1 and initial state increases from 2 onwards, and in case of the Paschen series, the initial state is greater than 4 and then final state is given by 3. So, now to find out the lambda maxima and lambda minimum, so let us see the lambda maxima first. For the lambda maximum, wavelength has to be maximum. For the maximum wavelength, the energy will be less. That means, for the lambda maximum, for the lambda max, energy will be less, means nu must be minimum. So, the first line is nothing but given by the corresponding to the maximum wavelength line. So, from the Balmer's relation, 1 by lambda equal to R into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. So, now for the lambda maximum, one by 1 square minus 1 by 2 square. So, now it comes out to be 1 by lambda maxima equal to R into 1 minus 1 by 4. It is given by so 1 by lambda max equal to 3R by 4. And similarly for the lambda minimum, 1 by lambda minima equal to R into 1 by 1 square minus 1 by infinity square. Minimum wavelength means nothing but it is corresponding to the maximum frequency line. So, the maximum frequency means maximum energy, means the transition must be infinity to the lowest level, that is for the Paschen series it is 3. So, 1 by 3 square. Now, it comes out to be 1 by lambda minimum equal to R by 9. So, now from this we can find out the lambda max. It is given by 4 by 3R, and from this one we can find out the lambda minimum. It is 9 by R. So, from the given question they gave the lambda maximum minus lambda minimum. So, we can mix these two for the Paschen series. So, we can get 11,802 angstrom units. Okay, let's move to the next question. A body of mass m by 2 moving with the velocity v naught collides elastically with another mass of m by 3. M by 3 which is at rest, this one is at rest. Find percentage change in kinetic energy of first body. Now see, now the final velocity formula is given by v1 equal to m1 minus m2 by m1 plus m2 into, let us say, u1 plus 2m2 by m1 plus m2 into u2. So second body is at rest, so u2 is 0. So v1 equal to m by 2 minus m by 3 by m by 2 plus m by 3 into v naught. So it comes out to be m by 6 and 6 by 5m into v naught. So the final velocity of the m by 2 mass is given by v naught by 5. And they are asking us find the percentage change in kinetic energy of the body. The percentage change is given by initial energy minus final energy by initial energy into 100. Okay. Now substitute the initial energy. Initial energy is given by half m by 2 into initial velocity square root minus final energy, that is given by 1 by 2 times m by 2. Final velocity is given by v naught by 5 by if you simplify this, you will get 96%. So option 2 correct. So let's move to the next question. So this question is also from the collisions. So now a body of mass m is moving with a velocity v, collides with shown masses respectively. Find the loss in kinetic energy after the last collision. Consider all collisions are completely inelastic. So all the collisions are completely inelastic collisions. Perfectly inelastic collision means all the bodies will move together. So conservation of linear momentum is applicable. So according to the conservation of linear momentum, initial momentum equal to final momentum. So initial momentum is given by m times v and final momentum is 8m plus 4m plus 2m plus m plus m. It comes out to be 16m. Let us say final velocity is given by v dash. So now final velocity is given by, from this, v dash equal to v by 16. So this is given by the final velocity. So find the loss in kinetic energy after the last collision. So loss in kinetic energy. So the loss in kinetic energy is given by initial kinetic energy minus final kinetic energy over initial kinetic energy times 100. So it is given by 1 by 2 16m. This is the final mass and final velocity is given by v by 16 whole square whole by, so this is the percentage loss. If you simplify this, we will get option 3. So 2 questions from the collisions. Let us move to the next question. So this is a question from the previous papers. So a ball is dropped vertically from a height d above the ground. It hits the ground and bounces up vertically to a height d by 2. So it is falling from a height d and after hitting it bounces, rises up to a height d by 2. neglect subsequent motion and air resistance. Its velocity v varies with height h above the ground shown as. So, along the x axis we have the h, and then along the y axis we have the v. So, we can solve this question by using our common sense. So, observe here, first the body is moving in the downward direction. So, the velocity is negative, and then when it reaches the ground, the velocity is given by v equal to square root of 2gh. If you draw a graph between v and h, that must be a like parabolic type, it is not a straight line. So, the option 3 is the wrong option, and the velocity is in the downward direction. So, the negative, and when it rises up, it will be positive. So, that means the two parts of the graphs must be in the two different coordinates. So, quadrants. So, now here if you observe this question, this option, so the two parts are in the same quadrant, and here in this one also two graphs are in the same quadrant. So, that is why these two are also eliminated. So, then the remaining answer is given by option 1, a simple one. So, let us move to the next question. So, it is a question from the electrostatics. Two infinitely large charged planes having uniform surface charge density plus sigma and minus sigma are placed along the xy plane and yz plane respectively as shown in the figure. Then nature of the electric lines of forces in the xz plane is given by. Now, see, now here these two are the planes. So, now this is the plus sigma and this is the minus sigma. Now, in case if you take any point here somewhere, the electric field due to this sheet will be in this direction, the electric field due to this one will be in this direction. The resultant of these two will be in this direction. That means the resultant of those two will be like this. Now, in case if you take one more point somewhere here, then the resultant will be like this and it will be like this. So, in each quadrant the fields will be like this. So, these are like this. So, not parabolic or circles like this, and then here it will be option square, it must be square. So, this will be the option. Okay. Let us move to the next question. So, gravitational field intensity is given by E equal to A times x by a square plus x square whole power 3 by 2. Then find out the potential at x. Assume that the potential at infinity is equivalent to 0. Now, the relationship between the field and potential is given by E bar equal to minus dV by dr bar. For the one dimension we can write E bar equal to minus dV by dx modulus. So, dV equal to minus E dx. So, now integral dV equal to minus integral field is given by Ax by a square plus x square whole power 3 by 2 and dx. It is given by minus dx. Because we are moving it from the infinity to the reference point, so the dx is negative. So, now here the potential at the infinity, it means 0, and the potential at the x, let us say v, and x is varying from infinity to x. So, now simply we have to do the integration, and after doing the integration we will get the option 2 correct. So, relationship between the field and potential. So, let us move to the next question. So, the graph between the stopping potential and the frequency of light is shown in the figure. So, now here the frequency is in the order of 10 power 14, this one is 10 power 14 hertz, and this intercept is given by 5, and they are asking us the stopping potential is stopping potential and frequency graph they give. They are asking us work function. So we have to find out the work function. So the work function is nothing but given by hf naught. So it is given by h is given by 6.6 into 10 to the power of minus 34, and f naught is given by 5 times 10 to the power of 14. It will be in the joules. We require in the electron volts. Actually the options are in electron volts. So now it is given by W equal to 6.6 into 10 power minus 34 into 5 into 10 to the power of plus 14 whole by 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 electron volts. If you simplify this, we will get 2.0625 electron volts. So we have to wait for the final key. So the nearest one is given by 2.04. So let's move to the next question. So two concentric circular current carrying arcs of radii R1 equal to 3 centimeter and R2 equal to 2 centimeter, and the direction of current in both arcs is shown in the figure. So in both the arcs, the current is in the clockwise direction. Find the ratio of the magnetic field B1 by B2 at the center produced by both the arcs. So the magnetic field due to an arc is given by mu naught by 4 pi times I by r into theta. Theta is given by the arc angle made by the arc. That means this angle we require, that angle we require. So now B1 by B2 is our requirement. So it is mu naught by 4 pi is a constant that can be cancelled out. Now I1 by R1 times theta 1 and R2 by I2 by theta 2. Now it is I1 by I2 R2 by R1 into theta 1 by theta 2. So the smaller arc makes an angle 90 degrees and bigger arc makes an angle 60 degrees. Smaller arc radius is given by 2 centimeter and the bigger arc radius is given by 3 centimeters. Now B1 by B2 equal to I1 by I2, same current is passing, and radius ratio 3:2, and theta 1 is given by 2 pi minus pi by 2, theta 1 it is pi by 2 over 2 pi minus 60 degrees, that is pi by 3. So simplify this. So 3 by 2, it comes out to be 3 pi by 2 and it is 3 by 5 pi. So pi get be cancelled. So magnetic field due to the combination of two arcs we have to find out. So B1 over B2 equal to mu naught by 4 pi I1 by R1. The angle made by this arc is given by the inner angle we require, that is 2 pi minus pi by 2 over mu naught by 4 pi I2 by R2, and for this one outer loop arc the angle is given by 2 pi minus pi by 3. So currents are same, 2 ampere 2 ampere. B1 over B2 equal to, it is I1 by I2 R2 by R1, it is 3 pi by 2 3 by 5 5. So currents are same, currents are given by 2 ampere each. So 2 ampere, R2 is 3 centimeter and R1 is 1 centimeter. It is 3 by 2 times 3 by 5. So we have to wait for the final option. So the given options, any of the options is not matching. Okay? Right. Thank you.
Welcome to physics part 2. In this question you are given with two charges 4q and minus q, which are kept at a distance d by 2 on either sides of the origin, and a point charge small q has been moved from point O to point P along a semicircular path, and you are asked to calculate the change in potential energy of this system. So, we have to calculate the potential energy in the final state, that is when the charge is at P, and we have to calculate the potential energy when the charge is at the origin, and then simple difference between the two potential energies will give you the answer. So, now for that what do we do? See, we calculate the initial potential energy. For that we calculate the potential at the origin due to these two charges and we multiply with the charge. In the same way we calculate the potential at this point P and we multiply with the charge Q. So, once if you get VO, I mean potential at origin and potential at point P, due to these two charges the problem is simple substitution. So, V naught is equal to potential at the origin, it is equal to K times 4Q by D by 2. This is the potential due to 4Q at origin, and due to minus Q the potential will be negative, it is minus KQ by D by 2, which comes out to be 7kQ by D, fine, sorry 6kQ by D. So, and then see when the charge is at P, the potential is written as due to 4q, the distance will be d by 2 plus d, which is 3d by 2, and due to minus q, the potential will be d by 2. So, on simplification, it gives you 8kq by 3d minus 2kq by d, which will give you 2kq by 3d. So, these are the respective potentials at the 2 points, and you can find out the potential energy this way. So, it will be 2kq small q by 3d minus 6kq q by d. So, on simplification, it comes out to be minus 16kq by small d. So, simply by calculating the potentials at O and P, and hence the potential energy, you can find out the change in potential energy of this charge distribution. So, a very simple question, and option 4 is the right choice. Coming to question number 12, you are given with a battery, this small r is the internal resistance of this battery and capital R is the external resistance that is connected in the circuit. According to the given question, the terminal voltage of the cell is 2.5 volts. So, whatever is the terminal voltage of this cell, that will be across the external resistance. So, this 2.5 volts will be the potential drop across this, and as he said, it is given in the question the EMF of this cell is 3 volts. So, out of which 2.5 volts will be dropped across this external resistance, and the remaining 0.5 volts is dropped across the internal resistance. So, it is very clear that, see, as the same current will be flowing through both small r as well as capital R, you can find out the powers simply this way. See, power loss in the internal resistance, you can calculate it as I square into R, and power loss in the external resistance, you can calculate as I square into capital R. So, right, it is given that the heat loss in capital R is 0.5 volts. Small r by capital R, simple ratio, and it is given that this is your 0.5 volts. You are asked to find out PR, that is small r by capital R into 0.50. So, this is the required power, that is the heat loss in the internal resistance, and once if you get small r by capital R, the problem is over. So, as same current is flowing through both of these resistors, I can write 0.5 volts is equal to some I into R, and then the remaining 2.5 volts will be dropped across the external resistance, that we can write it as I into capital R, and from this you can calculate small r by capital R as 0.5 by 2.5, which is 1 by 5. So, substituting 1 by 5 here will give you a power of 0.1 watt. So, again a straightforward question, and the correct choice for this question is 3. Let us move on to question number 13. So it's pretty straightforward question. See, once if you know the wavelength regions of various regions of electromagnetic spectrum, you can answer this within a within seconds. You know that the EM wave spectrum, it starts from gamma rays, X rays, UV, visible region, IR region, microwaves, and then radio waves. So the wavelength of gamma rays is of the order of some 0.01 angstrom units, and the wavelength of these radio waves will be in terms of few hundreds of kilometers scan. So this is the increasing order of the wavelength. This is increasing order. So radio waves, microwaves, visible, and then X. Radio, micro, visible, and then X-rays. First choice itself is the correct answer. Pretty straightforward question. Let's move on to question number 14. It's from kinematics, and a particle is initially at the origin. So the initial position of a particle is 0, 0, and it was moving with some velocity 5 j cap. So the particle is initially at the origin 0, 0, and the velocity of the particle is 5 j cap in SI units. See, it possesses an acceleration of 10 I cap plus 4 j cap. Meter per second square. After t time, it reaches the position 20, y. So let me call it as some point P. The coordinates of this point are 20, y, which means that the displacement of this body along x-axis I can write as 20 meters, and the displacement of this body along y-axis is some y. Okay, you are asked to find out this y. So according to the given question, the displacement of the body is 20 meters, right? So you can use this information to get the time that the particle actually takes to reach point P, and after getting time t, you can find out the displacement in the same time interval along y axis. So you know that you can write this as this way, which is equal to 20, and initial velocity of the particle is along y axis. Along x axis it does not have any velocity, so it will be 0 plus half. What is the component of acceleration along x axis? It is 10 meter per second square into some t if the time that the particle takes to reach point P. Then you can easily say that the time that it takes is t is equal to 2 seconds, and in that time 2 seconds, what is the displacement along y axis? That is asked in the question. So y is equal to uyt plus half ay t square. So initial velocity is along y axis, which is 5 meter per second, into the time it takes is 2 seconds, half into what is the acceleration along y axis? I think it is 4. So 4 into 4, 2 square. So it will be 10 plus 8, $18 meters. So 18 meters is the correct choice. See, coming to next question. Again the same question, right. So, this is regarding waves. You are given with the distance between a crest and a trough, that is given as 1.5 meters. So, consider that it is a wave, this is the crest and this is the trough, and the distance between a crest and trough, see the minimum distance between a crest and trough is lambda by 4. And while the distance between two troughs is 5 meters. Okay. So, the minimum distance between two successive troughs will be lambda by 2. So, lambda by 4 is the minimum distance between a crest and trough, successive crest and trough, and the minimum distance between two successive troughs will be lambda by 2. And as he said, the distance between a trough and a crest is 1.5 meters. What is this 1.5 meters? It is the distance between a crest and trough, and it is not mentioned that they come in line. So, I can't write this as lambda by 4, you can call it as some 2n plus 1 into lambda by 4. And in the same way, between two successive troughs it will be lambda by 2, but if it is not two successive troughs, let me call this as n1, and then let me call it as n2 into some lambda by 2. This is equal to, what is that given? It is equal to 5 meters, right. So, if it is successive, we will write this as, sorry, distance between two successive troughs is lambda, distance between two successive troughs it is lambda. So, it will be some n2 into lambda. So, if there are two successive troughs, this n2 it becomes 1, and if there are two, I mean this n2 it becomes, the range of n2 will be 1, 2, 3 and so on. So, you have to take, I mean you have to select the values of n1 and n2 which will satisfy these two conditions. So, you can divide these two equations. Sorry, this is lambda by 2, this distance is lambda by 2. Right, you have to select the values of n1 and n2 which will satisfy these conditions. So, it is 2n plus 1 by 2n2, fine. And then on simplification, you are going to get, I think 3n2 is equal to 10n1 plus 5. Suppose if I take both n1 and n2 are integers, n1 and n2 must be integers. If I take n1 is equal to 1, then this RHS will be 15, and n2 you can have some 5 which is an integer. So, it is this particular selection of n1 and n2 is possible. So, if n1 is equal to 1 and n2 is equal to 5, the wavelength will be lambda is equal to 1 meter. So, for such a selection you will be getting wavelength lambda is equal to, so straight away the answer will be in one of these three options. And then suppose if we put n1 is equal to 2, you are going to get some 25 and you are not going to get an integer for n2. So, that option is not possible, and n2 is equal to 3, even that option is, n1 is equal to 3, even that option is not possible, you are not going to get an integer for n2, and n1 is equal to 4, you will be getting an option. So, n1 is equal to 4, if n1 is equal to 4, this will be 45 and n2 will be 15, which indicates that the lambda of this will be 1 by 3 meters, 15. When you substitute 15 here, you will be getting N2, I mean lambda as 1 by 3 meters. So, you can stop your calculation there and you can pick the option 3 as your correct answer. So, you have some polarized light, and this polarized light, intensity of this polarized light is given. Some 3.3 watt per meter square, and the area of plane of the polarizer is given. So, that is 3 into 10 power minus 4 meter square. See, the polarizer that they are using has been rotated at an angle, at an angular speed of 10 pi radian per second. So, at an angular speed of 10 pi radians per second, the polarizer has been rotated, and you know that the intensity of the incident light, see, if intensity of the incident light is I naught, intensity of the incident polarized light is I naught, the emerging light will have an intensity of I naught cos square theta. I is equal to I naught cos square theta, and theta changes right from 0 to 2 pi. So, when you find out the average value of this cos square theta, you can easily say that it is simply I naught by 2. So, that is the intensity that is transmitted through this polarizer, and the average energy that is transmitted can be calculated as I naught by 2 into area. So, simply by substituting these values, you will be getting the energy that is transmitted in one complete cycle. So, you will be getting power here. So, energy transmitted per unit time. So, this 3.3 into so the time it takes to complete one rotation, you can easily calculate, that is 2 pi by omega, which is 2 pi by 10 pi, that is 1 by 5 seconds. So, when you wanted to have the energy that is transmitted through that, you have to multiply that with 1 by 5, this one. So, this is your power, and power multiplied with time will give you the energy that is transmitted. So, roughly it will be of the order of, the required answer will be of the order of some 1.65 into 3 into 10 power minus 4 into 1 by 5. So, I think it is 0.33, so 0.99 into 10 power minus 4. So, it will be of the order of 10 power minus 4. So, I mean these are not the exact numbers given. So, you can pick the order as 10 power minus 4, and it is nearly 1 into 10 power minus 4. So, coming to the next question, right, see, this is a straightforward question. You are given with two Zener diodes which are connected this way, and an AC source is connected in this circuit. It supplies the AC power, and you have some series resistance. So, when the input voltage varies this way, see, for positive half cycle, one of the diodes will be in the forward bias. Effectively, they do not offer any resistance. Unless it is stated in the question, we will be taking the diode as ideal. So one of the diodes is not going to offer any resistance, the other diode will offer resistance. But one see, the 6 volts is the Zener voltage. So at 6 voltage Zener breakdown it occurs, and the voltage across that Zener voltage will be it remains constant as 6 volts. So whereas input voltage is 10 volts, the output you are going to get it is 6 volts once after the breakdown is reached. So you are not going to get this peak, see something like this you will get, see this will be 6 volts. So if the input voltage is like this with peak 10 volts, in the output voltage you do not get the peak 10 volts here, so you will be getting only 6 volts. So that is about question number 18. And coming to this question, so this is a bar magnet, it is experiencing some torque when it is placed in the magnetic field. So you know that, you know how to calculate the torque experienced by a bar magnet when placed in the magnetic field. It is M bar cross B bar. You can write it as MB sin theta. So the torque it is given, it is 0.018 Newton meter, which is equal to the magnetic moment of this is not given, and the magnetic field it is given as 0.06 Tesla, and the angle that the dipole moment makes with the magnetic field is 30 degrees. So it will be sin 30. So from this you can get the magnetic moment. I think it comes out to be, see, this is around 0.3 by 2 SI units. So after getting M, he has to find out the work done by the external agent in rotating from minimum potential energy to the maximum potential energy position. So how do you write the potential energy of this bar magnet when placed in a magnetic field? So it will be simply the dot product of negative of dot product of the magnetic moment and also the magnetic field. So it is minus M bar dot B bar. So you know that it is U minimum is minus MB. See, it happens when the dipole moment aligns with the direction of the external magnetic field, and U maximum it will be MB. So the work done by the external agent is simply the negative of the change in potential energy. So it will be minus U final minus U final minus U initial. So as you are finding the work done by the external agent, I think you can put plus. So this will be your answer. So this will be 2 into the magnetic moment we have calculated here, 0.3 by 2 SI units. Into the magnetic field 0.06 Tesla. You will be getting 0.018 joules. So option 2 is the right choice. Coming to this question, no calculation is required. See, you have a coil that through which some current is flowing and a bar magnet has been moved through this coil. So once if the bar magnet enters, as the change in magnetic flux it exists within this coil, you will find some current that passes through this circuit, right? And once if the magnet comes out of the coil, again due to the decrease in the magnetic flux, there will be some deflection in the galvanometer, and see, due to the increase in flux, the deflection will be in one direction, and due to the decrease in flux, the deflection in the galvanometer will be opposite in direction. So the only option that tells you the opposite directions while entering or and then while leaving the solenoid or the coil is option 2. You can easily identify that. So coming to this compound microscope, see the question is final image is formed at 25 centimeters, that is at least distance of distinct vision. So when the final image is formed at least distance of distinct vision, you know the magnifying power will be calculated as VO by UO. See, this is the object distance and the corresponding image distance for the objective lens into 1 plus D by FE. So everything is given. See, the magnifying power here it is given as 100. See, VO by UO is not given to us. You know that when the length of the tube is given to you, VO by UO is approximately equal to L by F naught. So you can write L by F naught into 1 plus D by FE. So the length of the tube it is given as 20 centimeters, and the focal length of the objective lens is given as 1 into 1 plus least distance of distinct vision, it is 25, and you are asked to calculate the focal length of the eyepiece. See, on simplification, 5 minus 1 4, focal length of the eyepiece will be some 25 by 5 4, right. So it will be 4 6 24 for 6.25 centimeters approximately. So that will be the focal length of the eye lens. Coming to the last question, you have a mixture here, 0.1 moles of moles of a gas you have at a temperature 200 Kelvin, and this is mixed with some 0.05 moles of the same gas, right, same gas which is at 400 Kelvin. So see, when these two gases are mixed, the final temperature is found to be 10 T naught. What is the value of T naught? This is what is asked in the question. So these many moles of the gas are at temperature 200 Kelvin, and this moles of the same gas is at temperature 400 Kelvin, and when they are mixed together, this will be the final temperature, and you are asked to find out T naught. So when you write down the internal energies of the two gases and when you add, it must be the constant, right. So I think N C, some CV is the specific heat at constant volume, right, into 200. So this is the internal energy of this gas, and the internal energy of this gas will be 0.05 into CV, the same, and then the temperature of this is 400, and for the mixture when you write, the number of moles is going to become 0.15, and CV of the mixture will be same as that of the CV of the gas, and the temperature of this mixture is some 10 into T naught, which is given in the question. So I think this is 20 and this is also 20, which is equal to 1.5 T naught. So T naught is 40 by 1.5. I think 4, 15, 2, 30, 100, 15, 6, 90, 100, 26.66. So you can select 26.6 kelvins as the answer for this question. Thank you.